Live.
Got it.
And I'll receive an invite.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, it looks like we're live. Yep, we're good. Okay, we're good on there. So now let's do this again. And we're ready to go. So here we go.
Yeah, I don't see the Instagram live.
Should pop up any second. Just stay on that page. And here it is. Just loading. And I would put your phone on Do Not Disturb. That's what I do too. Okay. Wait for people to join.
I'm at IG Live. I'm not seeing anything.
Second. Okay. All right. Let's see. Pop up. Come on. So no. Let me know.
No.
It should pop on and say we're going live. There we go, live. Okay, so now we're live. Let's see if I can invite you. Yeah, it just might not be notifying that we're live. Eric Selby, right? Eric Selby, that's your Instagram? Eric Selby Music?
I'm looking at you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There you go. Hey guys, what's up? All right, so you joined. I just asked you to join the video. What's up, everyone? Hello. Perfect. And set. Here we go. All right, we're gonna mute our computer. Hey guys, what's up? So I got Eric coming. He is a drummer, a producer, and a father. And I can't wait to get this chat going. Eric, what's up, man? How are you? Can everyone hear us? Yes. Eric, can you hear me?
Just barely.
Okay, let's make sure your phone volume's up. Here we go. All right.
It is.
Okay. There we go. All right, guys. Eric, we're good with sound?
Yes, it's breaking up a little bit, but yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Let me see if I can fix that. Wi-Fi. All right. Let's just turn that off. Okay. All right. So we got Eric here. Eric, I want you to introduce yourself again. He's a drummer, producer, father, and we're going to talk about how he produces his own stuff. He's releasing his own stuff. He's got a single coming out actually tomorrow. So maybe Eric can speak a little bit about that and the awesome story behind it. But let's introduce you first, Eric. So just a little bit about yourself and what you do, your background as a drummer.
Great. Hey, Matt, can you hear me okay?
Yep. All good.
Cool. Hey, my name's Eric Selby. I'm out of the D.C. area, and I'm fortunate enough to play with some great musicians in this region. And I am a dad and a drummer by trade. And fortunately, I've released some music this year that's resonated with some folks, which I am certainly appreciative of. And I'm looking forward to, not only continuing playing drums for the bands that I play with, but also, releasing my own projects in the studio. And we have a new single coming out tomorrow.
Very cool. So what's interesting is that you're a drummer by trade, right? So I want to talk about that transition from drumming into producing and songwriting, because it's an interesting thing. I mean, going from one instrument to like, oh my God, I have to think as a piano player, as a guitar player, as a synth player, and then I have to arrange. So how was your transition? Kind of what made you lean towards songwriting and producing?
Well, I honestly, I stumbled. I was a drummer by trade for many moons.
Mm-hmm.
The songwriting part of it was simply because I was entertaining myself at home, playing guitar in my living room to make up songs to entertain myself or to. Got around to it and started working with a great producer by the name of Marco Del Mar here in the DC area about a year ago. And because, I'd written these songs because I'd heard them, although I was playing them on acoustic guitar at home, I kind of put them together in my head because I had all this time,
Sure.
between the time I wrote them and the time I went to the studio. So I almost had a lot of these songs put together in my melon before I walked into the studio. So when
Sure.
I went to the studio, Marco, who's a phenomenal producer, gave me the leeway to produce with him and determine how the song should be pieced together. It's all puzzle piece
Sure.
here in the studio. How they should be pieced together, what instrumentation I heard, what musicians made sense for the songs.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it was more like an evolution more than a strategic plan.
Sure. That makes sense. And it comes more organic, especially when the songwriting process is organic. That's where the magic happens too. So I remember you mentioning you were doing it for fun first, like you were writing songs, right, just for fun, and that no one really ever heard it, and now it's time to kind of put it all out there, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like when the music was put together and we decided to release. I was having conversations with people who are way more knowledgeable, higher pay grade than I, including Ariel in Cyber PR. And, we had discussions with should we release this music in the midst of this whole COVID situation? Yeah. And for me, because the intention wasn't to, tour, and the intention wasn't to chart necessarily, it was more just to create art and share it with friends and family. I'm like,
sure.
Let's go ahead and put it out. So it's kind of worked out well for me at this point, and it's exciting. It's fun. I also know with where the music industry is today, and also know with everything that's a little bit on hold right now, that I understand the worth, and I appreciate how far it's gone.
Agreed. And it's almost like, from what I'm learning too, it's like almost a relief to release music without that end goal, right? It's like, I'm just making music because I love it, right? And that is like such a special trait, because as a musician, right, as a drummer, you're listening to music in different ways, and it's like sometimes for me, I get like discouraged when I'll hear some current music. I'm like, like one loop, come on, so it's like I love that you're doing it because you love it. And I think from the more artists I meet, especially at Cyber PR, a lot of people that release independently are people that love music. Like, you can't pull them away from it, and there's something really special there. I also want to talk about this because I saw this pop up on one of your track reviews, and it said that you were inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in 2008. 5 tracks in the top 20. That's awesome. So I want to talk about that.
Sure. And forgive me if I'm jumping on you. You're breaking up a little bit, I guess, with everyone being online right now, nationwide, it's kind of broken up. But the induction into the Hall of Fame. There are a couple Hall of Fames out there, and both are recognized by different groups. But I was in the right place at the right time, to be honest. I've been a blues drummer for probably a couple of decades now, and I've had the opportunity to play with some great blues artists, which include Billy Thompson, who's played with Little Milton and Albert King and the Nevilles, and the folks from Little Feat, as well as there's a trio that I played with, and it's called Little Bit of Blues, and Little Bit of Blues is includes Jay Summerhour and Warner Williams. And Warner Williams, interestingly enough, he's 90 years old. Talk about your old grizzled blues guy. He's like the poster child for that, But he won the National Endowment of the Arts Heritage Award Fellowship for his contribution to American music, and just to be able to play with folks like Warner and Jay and Billy Thompson. Is really an honor. So, I really think that my inclusion in the Blues Hall of Fame is more guilt by association than it is actually, what a wonderful blues artist I am. So I as I've said before, and I even said on my most recent record, I'm standing on the shoulder of giants on that one.
Sure, that makes sense. It's the music industry is really about that network they have and that community you have, and then but I see still a lot. You got a major resume with the drums, so that's awesome. So your style is pretty much blues then, right?
Yeah, I'm getting phone calls as we talk.
It's okay.
I'm logging back in with you. So it's a blues. You know what? I started really, self-taught initially, and then I played with a fusion jazz band for a long time. And so I had, I don't want to say jazz chops. I didn't have that, but I had fusion chops. If
different. Yeah. Of course.
And I was fortunate enough to, again, get the call from some blues folks to play. And so, after I played with these guys in the DC area, I got an opportunity to tour with these fellows. So to say, do I have a blues background? A bit, but a lot of it's been trial and error over the last couple of decades. But after a while, what is it? Fake it till you make it. And,
yes.
I'm not the best. I don't have the best left-hand shuffle in the world, but I'll do my best.
Sure. Yeah, that's tough. That left-hand shuffle stuff. I still can't get that.
It's all about the molar technique.
Yep. It's crazy. Of course. The bounce. You let it go. Yeah. So obviously, like, that's an awesome background, like blues, fusion, even a little bit of jazz. Does that play into the sound of your current music, even if it's subconsciously, unconsciously, just comes out in your writing? But do you think that plays into that at all? Does it show up in your current music?
No doubt. You know what? I actually, I always kind of shied away from being jumping into a particular genre. So, I grew up with the Beatles, man. It was all about John Paul. I'm the youngest of 5 sons.
Wow.
And I was the mistake at the end. So my brothers are a little bit older than me. So they totally turned me on to the Beatles. So I think there's a little bit of that Mercy beat sound and feel in everything I do.
Great song.
But at the same time, I listen. A lot of people say, "Oh no, I listen to everything." But the reality is, I listen to everything.
Yep, same.
there's very few genres I don't I'm not hep to, or I don't listen to. So one song might have a southern rock kind of feel, although I don't have much southern rock background. But one thing might be very XTC, Beatles, psychedelic.
Sure.
The next tune might be very acoustic, America. Jason Isbell, although I'm not that kind of, I'm not at their ilk, but that sort of feel, So I think a lot of the songs I have, and even blues, there's some blues elements. Some of these, when you're making a record, the first thing you do, I'm sure you've done this too. Like, okay, who are my guys?
Yep.
Who are my peeps that are going to come in and do the job and do a killer job? Not only will they do what you ask them to do with no attitude, but they will also give you their flavor.
Yes, that's what you want. Yes.
And so I, on this record, on the record that's coming out tomorrow, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but the record that just came out in the spring, I Billy Thompson, who I mentioned before, great blues artist, Jay Summerhour, phenomenal blues, iconic blues harmonica player, Don Chapman, who's he is currently, he's played with the guys from America. He is currently playing with in the Larry Burnett band featuring Don Chapman. Which,
sure.
Larry Burnett was one of the main songwriters and main characters in Firefall, that 70s band. And I should say that 70s band because they're still around, but
yes,
just great music. And and also had this phenomenal bass player, Chris Brown. Wes Lanik, those guys played with Ron Holloway's band. And then I go back to, I keep on mentioning Marco, but Marco, the producer, he was in a band, I believe in the 80s, signed on Capitol Records, opening up for folks like Alice Cooper and that sort of thing. So those all these artists, I'm so indebted to them, and that's only a few. Also, you have Sean Finn and Miles Gannett from Fractal Cat, which is a phenomenal psychedelic rock band. So I guess my point is, I had 70s, that sort of 70s yacht rock thing happening.
Yeah.
I had blues artists on the record. I had psychedelic artists on the record. Les Hatley, who is an amazing 12-string guitar player, was on the record. And I didn't have them doing different songs. I had them all in the same song.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That it's funny because I think I've gotten a few reviews on the record that came out in the spring, and also I just got a review on a record, the single that's coming out tomorrow, and there's mention of the different genres they hear within the song, and I take that as a compliment. And it's not just
absolutely
me. It's these killer artists that have been so kind to be a part of my project.
Like you said, they put the flavor on it, and
oh my God,
that's so cool. And it's hard to find that because the current state of a lot of production. This is something I wanted to mention to you, is that I feel like currently the role of a producer is so much different than it originally was. Right back when it was a producer described it what you're doing, bringing the talent together, recording it on the record, all that stuff, right? Whereas now what a producer was called a programmer back then, right? Like all the MIDI stuff, it's like everyone's making music on their laptops, but what a lot of people don't realize is that like MIDI work that people are producers now, it's like that was a specific thing, a programmer. And it's so interesting to see the word producer just kind of does evolve into that, because a lot of producers are mixing engineers now, and they're mixing their own stuff and mastering it. And it's crazy what people can do in the computer, but you don't get that flavor.
Right.
And that's so cool that you're kind of you're still doing it that way, where you're finding that talent, bringing them in, recording them. So how long did that whole process for this current record take?
The one that's out now, or the one that's coming out tomorrow?
Coming out tomorrow.
Actually, the way that evolved was this. I made the EP that released in April, and that's the one you guys were so kind enough to support, which I appreciate. And Twin Vision helped out with the radio support, which I really appreciate. And I, from the recommendation of the producer, Marco, the guy who, really helped me through this whole thing. He's like, hey man, take some time off, breathe. And cause the record's doing well. Cause when you're making a record, everything gets tense and
of course.
you're trying to meet deadlines and all this kind of thing. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take the year off, write music, figure stuff out, and then I'll put something out next year, right? What happened was that, first of all, we didn't expect the record to get legs, which I appreciate that it did.
Great.
But also, I don't think anyone expected COVID to be where it is now, and,
right? No one could have predicted that.
We don't have to get into politics. We can talk for hours on that.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think initially, in March and April, okay, by the summer, we're going to have, we'll be smart enough to wrap this up. But clearly that is not the case.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, I'm home. I'm working and I'm home, and I'm able to work in the studio. Why not just continue where we're going? And what, rather than feeling the pressure of putting out a record, a full record, an EP or an LP, let's just do singles and instead of feeling pressure, have fun making them. So
that's the goal.
This new single, to answer your question, I'm trying to think. I think we started in May.
Okay.
So it wasn't that long ago.
That's great.
And what we actually recorded, we tracked 3 tunes, and I'm putting one of them out now. And I'm going to put a new tune out every couple of months. So
sure.
One's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
One's coming out. Let me do my math. November, and then another one's coming out at the beginning of the year.
That's great.
Yeah. And because of the magic that occurred on the first EP, I'm not afraid to go back to the till, and it's almost in many ways not the entire same team, but part of the same team, because the song only dictated so much instrumentation. Sure. So on this song, and the song is called Anxious Zen. I'm playing drums and singing and playing guitar,
awesome,
and percussion, and Don Chapman is playing rhythm guitar and electric guitar and singing backup vocals, and Billy Thompson is playing slide guitar and electric guitar and backup vocals. So those guys are from the original song, record I did in the spring.
Wow.
Also have Wes Lanick out of Denver on keys, and Christopher Brown here in DC, phenomenal bass player, playing bass. And again, Marco's back at the producer's chair.
Yeah.
So, it went faster than the first record, but I think it went faster because it was more relaxed and there wasn't pressure.
Sure, that's the whole thing. It's like I've had to have mentors in my music career. It's the most important part, because me too. Like I'll burn out. Like I did a 12-hour session the other day, and I was like, wow, I'm never doing that again. you know? And my mentor's like, why?
Next week you're gonna go do it again.
Yeah, I know, right? But I realize, and then I get better results when I break it up. 4 hours here, do the recording one day, track the vocals another day. I mean, during the writing process, time just goes into a void, right? Like when you're writing and jam, forget it, 3 days in a row. But I want to touch on that, what Marco said to you, though. Taking time off, Jen actually asked, what's the most important lesson you learned in that time off?
I didn't have a whole lot of time off, although I was supposed to take time off. I didn't have a whole lot of time off to learn too much. You know what I did? It was a different process, because the first 6 songs that are on the EP were songs that I chose from maybe, there were 6 songs from maybe 15 songs that I've written. So I could choose what I thought spoke to the way I was feeling at the time, and also just spoke to representing who I am. This was a little different. In the time off, I was actually spending time writing specifically to record.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a different thought process. But, everything is so surreal right now, right?
Yes.
Like, everyone's home, or if they're out and about, they're doing it, with masks on and social distance. Everything is just so surreal right now. I'm not sure if everything is just bizarre because of COVID, it's bizarre because the record has done well, or it's just bizarre because things are just bizarre right now.
Yeah.
You know?
All the above, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I actually think, in some sad, exciting way, the EP did as well as it did is because people were home.
Yes. Yes.
And not a lot of people were releasing music, So I think when music was released, more program directors, more listeners, more radio station DJs,
of course,
were just listening to music that was coming out because there was less of it, and maybe people were just home and had the time.
Agreed.
Which, it's a cool thing for me in the grand scheme of things.
Of course.
The reason sucks.
It sucks. Absolutely. Yeah. I saw a lot of artists would come to us and be like, I know it's COVID, so like, what do I do? Should I release music or should I not? And, it varied, but for the most part, I really felt like this was a good time to release music, but also release music that's kind of, like relevant to the times, Right. That's what's important.
I'm in a unique position because I don't need or necessarily want to be a front man. I never did. And I'm happy. I'm really happy being a drummer for the different projects that I get to play for. It's fun for me. It's what I know. I think that what for me is that it was good timing because I'm not looking to tour. Like I feel my heart aches for all of my musician friends, local, regional, or national, or international, that can't do these tours, or even whether it's a local club tour in a region or a national tour. I never intended to do that. So what stinks for them is that they have to make a decision from an economic engine because they've become a machine with
it's crazy.
Band to support and so many mouths to feed on that are out touring. I didn't have that, so my intention wasn't to drive a machine. It was really just to put out music for the sake. There's a friend of mine. Her name is Kirsten Trump, and I heard her say to me a couple of years ago, or actually she said it to Billy Thompson, her significant other, and I happened to benefit from it. She said, and I'm going to say this wrong, but the gist was, if you can put art out into the world, put art out into the world, and for that reason, I'm like, let's go ahead and put the stuff out there and see what happens. Not because I think it's, Sgt. Pepper.
No.
To what I can offer to the ether.
Sure. And that's again, like, that's what I love. It's like, it's all about the love of music and all about the passion. I think that's the best approach. Hold on, I'm just
and you can while you're fiddle, I'll say you can lose that. You can lose that in the machine, in the merry-go-round of the industry.
Of course,
you can lose the love, and I admit, there was a point, without getting into the particulars, I started losing what it was all about. It became business. And I realized, sure, it's a business. It's called music business. We're all, the purpose is to fund yourself and get enough compensation that you can be happy, whatever that happiness is.
Yeah.
But when you break it down, what the business is about art. And
100%.
It really is about expression and expressing yourself, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. I got lost in it too. There was a point in time where I wanted nothing to do with it. I got burnt out because it just became not about the music. I like you realized I don't want to get on stage. I love drumming. Like, put me on stage as a drummer, but as like a artist, right? Like the modern day artist, I was in a group and it was just like going for that pop stuff. And I'm like, everything about this isn't about the music. I almost didn't want to take music video. I didn't want to film music videos. I didn't want to do that. I just want to be in the studio, and there's so much in there that just wants to come out, right? And that's the thing, was that I didn't give myself the chance to, because I was I was burning out trying to get that business end, right? So that's sort of what I learned on the time off, because I took a lot of time off in COVID. I was like, whoa, like step back here. And it just brought it back to that music again, you know? And I can't imagine being a father of 4 and having to be in the studio every day. How are you pulling that off?
Well, you don't pull it off.
Yeah.
That's how you pull it off. You know, you try to do. You try to be effective. And this is gonna sound. All this stuff's going to sound cliche, but it's the truth. You try to be. Try to coordinate things so that you're as effective as possible.
Sure.
And first and foremost, you know, everyone who I'm playing with, I'm trying to think this through. They're all parents, you know, and so they get it. And
yes.
And you know, my kids grew up with me being a musician, so it's not like they're like, you know, freaking out because dad's got a gig or dad's got a studio. It's dad's work too.
Yeah, they get it.
So that's really helpful for me because my kids are, you know, I have 4 daughters, and all of them have just been amazingly supportive, to a fault. You know, they're just so amazing, and they're great critics. You know, and the critics I need before it goes out, you know, and they get, you know, you record a song, it isn't like fresh that day. You worked on that song forever, right?
Oh my God!
And then you record it, and by the time it goes out, like Anxious Zen's coming out tomorrow, and I hope everyone loves it. But the reality is, I've heard this song so many times, you know.
That's yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, but before it even gets to the studio, my kids have heard this song so many times, so much that I'll even say, "Hey, they'll hear a recording, and a couple words will be different, and they'll know that." Oh, and not even they're that involved in it. They just because they hear it so much around the house or whatever, they'll know like, "Hey, that's a different phrasing or that kind of thing."
Yep, that's the thing about being a producer. I think we hear it thousands of times, right? Like before it even comes out. Oh man. My brother too, he lives with me. He's like, "Oh, you changed that?" Like even if it's like a little movement of like a symbol or something. So it's hard having that.
And, you know, it's something that we, you know, I'm sure. If anyone's a producer or even a musician who's listening, they will totally get this. Those happy mistakes in the studio.
Big.
Because there's a song on the EP that came out called "Conversational Snow," and we were lining up background vocals to my lead vocal, and just you're lining stuff up. And it echoed in beat, like we're like, cool,
whoa,
that's the new sound, you know. And at the end of the song, that mistake, you know, it was a happy mistake. It ended up being this cool like end of a song that we never intended. And if I had one happy mistake, I had 1,000 happy mistakes on this.
Yeah,
this and every record I'm going to make in the future.
Happy accidents are so key, especially if there's any producers watching this, like being open to those happy accidents is like so key, right? Because like when we're starting a song, we hold on to it. We're like, oh, I want it to sound like this. And when something like that happens, it's like, oh my God, like I've had that before. I've almost scratched everything I did for that one happy accident. And then it's like, that's the new song. It's so important to be open to that stuff, right?
Yeah. And I think a great producer is open to 2 things. Number one, or does 2 things. If they have great musicians in the studio that know what they're doing and can deliver their flavor and the flavor of the song, and you used the word organic earlier. If the producer could just let the music or the musician track organically, that's awesome. But if it's the producer also has the responsibility that I'm finding that when things are getting off track and the message isn't being delivered the way it should be, they're able to very delicately, and this is where Marco Del Mar has taught me, not by word but by action. You know, you do it very delicately to reroute them. Like that's a great take, but let's try it this way.
That's so important.
It's like musicians, he does that to me all the time. You know, I'm a drummer, not a singer, man. If you've heard our stuff, you'll realize, you know. But
same.
You know, he is able to get emotion. And you know, I've never said this, so I might as well say it now since we're live, and it'll be recorded for future. But you know, Marco is really big on pulling emotion out.
Yes, same.
And he would say, you know, sit back. What emotion are you feeling about this song? feel that emotion, and when you're ready, I'll hit record.
Mm.
And there was a point where the song that I was singing was so heavy for me that I actually started losing it in the vocal booth.
Yeah.
And here's talk about a great producer. He opened the door and gave me a hug.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Closed the door. This is pre-COVID.
Wow.
Closed the door and we went back to tracking because he's just saying it's all about emotion, and a good producer pulls the best out of every artist, but also pulls the best out of every song.
Yeah, it's so important. And I don't know, as a producer, in that sense, like in a studio when you're recording artists, there's a psychological part to it, right? Because you don't know how the artist is feeling that day. And just saying something the wrong way, forget it. You're done. You're not gonna get that take. So you're right, having to like delicately bring it back, even if it's just like, hey, let's just change this a little bit this way, try it a little bit more this way, a little, you kind of have to bring it back to focus. And that's it's almost very psychological. You have to be very careful. That's amazing advice, and that's an amazing producer.
And musicians, man, present company included, we're egocentric, particular folk. And, even if you didn't write the song, if you're just laying down drum tracks or laying down, guitar tracks, I know it's easier said than done to say leave your emotions at the door, but it's you're delivering your art, and it's easy to be offended, and so you have to do your best to leave that stuff at the door. Yeah,
it's hard because we get so attached to our art and our craft. Like it's like you practice for hours. And I remember who was I speaking to? I was speaking to, I think it was Carlos Alomar. He was a guitar player. He did Fame for, was it Bowie? Yeah. And we were doing a session with him, and he's like, you know what? He's like, when instrumental, when I used to have to go to the studio on that day, he's like, they would tell me, it's not time to practice, right? It's time to, you better be perfect. It's not time to practice. You go in, you hit that, and you're out, because studios were so expensive at the time, right? It was like, oh my God. So what's so cool about the technology now, right, is that there's time to feel that emotion and look at it and pull the threads out of it. And that's my favorite thing about being a producer nowadays, is that, like, if you're tracking in Pro Tools or Ableton or Logic, like, you're going to have those takes there, so you can capture some magical stuff without the pressure on the vocalist,
Yeah, no doubt. Cut, and the old cut and paste is vital nowadays. Right?
Oh yeah, you can fly over a chorus.
It's not like there's 2-inch tapes. You're sitting there with a wax pen and the tape and putting things together. It's so easy.
Oh man, it's so easy.
So you interviewed the guitar player for Fame?
So what happened was, I didn't interview him. I think I was in the studio as an artist, and one of my buddies went to school with him, or he was his teacher at the time. So he's like, yeah, we're going to go to Carlos's studio. And I was like, oh my God, whoa. But the wisdom, it was like, the word you used, efficiency, right? I feel like that's lost. And I'm glad we can touch on that, because especially a modern day producer, it's so easy to get lost in the process, right? And from what I'm learning from my mentor in music is that having that process, right? And it keeps you efficient. Like for me, so if I'm editing something, I'm not going to stay on it forever, or I'm going to commit to stuff, even if I'm programming MIDI, bounce it to audio. Because if you don't, it's like you're going to keep going back and going back and going back. Right. And it's so easy to get lost in that. And I think especially for someone like yourself, I'm learning too, because I'm raising my brother and stuff. It's like I have to be efficient, because I only have 3 or 4 hours today in the studio. And the efficiency as a producer has to be there.
For me as a drummer, and not even as a drummer, it was helpful to be a drummer than going in to play guitar, because I don't know how I would have done this otherwise. But you make the click track your friend, because all my instruments, that are on the record, I'm trying to think this through. Yeah, they're all like live. There's no MIDI. It's all it's all real deal instruments. And if you don't make the click track your friend, you're not only screwed on that session, but you're screwed as a studio musician. So
it's so important.
For any musician, if you're not playing or working with some sort of metronome or click track, man, do that, because I had an epiphany experience, an epiphany day. And I was doing studio sessions for many moons, and the click track was always a son of a gun to me. Like, you're always battling the click track. You're like, oh, that click track's running too fast.
It's like, no.
No, the click track doesn't lie.
Yeah.
And I'll share this. Hopefully, some musicians out there will embrace this concept. I started not thinking that I had to play to the click track. I started thinking that the click track was my percussions.
Yep.
So that quarter note, if it is a quarter note, that quarter note is really just the cowbell for the percussionist. So I wasn't playing against it or battling it. I was playing with it. And then you can play behind the beat and in front of the beat, and you play a little behind the beat in the verses sometimes, and you play in front of the beat during the choruses to make it bring it up a little bit. But still, that click track is your butt. So the day I realized that click track, that cowbell, that percussionist was assisting me, not fighting with me, it changed everything.
Agreed.
So I recommend that use that viewpoint or that perspective as a musician, however you need to. But it was really, it was key for me. Yeah,
it's amazing you said that, because now I'm realizing I didn't start playing. I always had to play with a click track because I was in march band and stuff, and we had to be like, but it was always like this robotic thing that was like strict and enforced, right? But now, as I moved into some session drumming in California, I looked at it as like a musical part, and I was like, whoa, like, and like you said, that gets the mind out of the way where you're like, oh man, I got to play this damn track and stuff. And it opened me up to be like creative with, like you're saying, move and accent on it. And you're right. That's such a key thing. And it can go for any instrumentalist. I think a piano player. Yeah.
And clearly guitar isn't my first, instrument. And I think if I had jumped into tracking just guitar without being a drummer and having that epiphany, it would have been a huge struggle. I mean, I'm sure Marco had to edit the hell out of my guitar as it is. It would have been a hot mess otherwise, I think, being able to play to the click and embracing the click is just, it's really key.
It is. Even as a singer, like I'll be recording vocals and it's like, people don't, some vocalists, very good ones, obviously know this, but the rhythm is such an important part of the vocal. It's your dynamics, your pitch, but your rhythm also. And that click track is your friend. It's like you could bounce around it with it, forward, back. It's such an important thing. I love that you brought up on that. I want to jump into your release tomorrow. So,
okay, cool.
Very interesting title. I want to hear a little bit about the story behind it, because I could tell just by speaking to you, there's a whole lot behind that, and that's a beautiful thing. I want to hear about it.
Yeah. I think most of my songs, and get back to efficiency and kids and that kind of thing, or having other responsibilities, I have found that rarely was I ever in a position where I could sit down and work on a song for 4 or 5 hours. I would always just like work on a song for a little while, put it down, make dinner, come back, grab a glass of wine, work on the song, put it down, come back 2 days later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the voice memo has become my friend too. So I think a lot of my songs are pieces that come together and hear more so than hear from the listener. Which hopefully makes it interesting. And I know folks can say, oh, make the song mean whatever it means to you. But to answer your question, it's an amalgam of different thoughts and people. The initial thought about the song was about a lady who I know who is quite, or was quite anxious. Had lots of anxiety, but at the same time, rather than I guess freaking out about her constant anxiety, she almost danced with it.
Wow.
It was almost like a her anxiety, rather than being a problem, almost was like a superpower.
Wow.
So that was the initial thought of the song, the anxious Zen, and the first verse kind of leads up to that. How she is anxious, but she dances with the Zen, and the thought is her anxiousness, is always in her head. And then at the same time, I found the person intriguing. So not when you think of a person, you embrace all of them and thought was like her anxiety's in her head. So you know what? She's in my head too. What it interests. So maybe her anxiousness is in my head too. And then the second half of the tune kind of goes into a different thought process I had, which was, and I'm talking lyrically, you know, anything.
Of course,
was more like, you know, when someone is in that position, you know, they can self-medicate or get help or, you know, just be, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of created this, you know, it was more of a fiction thought where it was like, you know, rather than getting help from a therapist or whatever, she was, you know, she self-medicates.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I think that's an issue for society in general.
Mental health and stuff.
For,
sure.
For the times right now, because I think a lot of folk are self-medicating with different stuff.
Of course.
And I'm not even making an editorial about it one way or the other. It's more of a story.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm not
beautiful.
saying, hey, it's cool that you do, and I'm not saying it's uncool that you do. It's more like, hey, this is the story of the song. It's like this person is very anxious, and the way she deals with it in the song is, you know, she self-medicates, and she's an interesting character, and she gets in my head every once in a while.
Wow. Yeah, she kind of like transcends it by, you know, not fighting it, which is that's a beautiful thing. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's talk about the process of the release, right? So obviously with all the records you've put out in the past and all the other records you've recorded, it's like, so what's different now in these past, especially during COVID or in the past couple of years about releasing music than it was when you were coming up, you know? Is it a different process for you?
Well, everything's different.
Sure.
I know that's a blanket. Everything's different.
Of course.
We talk about, you know, the record company model.
Yeah.
Oh. You know, and we've I've talked about this with your team. Like, you know, what's the record industry paradigm anymore? And I think the paradigm is there is no paradigm.
Nope.
You know, it's whatever the heck you want to do. That's why I kind of like, you know what, rather than following a set customary way of processing, I'm just like, hey, what do I want to do? Because it doesn't really matter.
Yep. Doesn't.
So the way I've approached this differently, number one, I was like, hey, what do I want to do? And what I wanted to do was put out, based on, you know, what I mentioned, my friend Kirsten said about, you know, putting art out there. Rather than putting a record out and sitting on it for a long time, I wanted to put a single out every couple of months. Just like, here's my new piece of art. Here's my new piece of art, you know?
That's great.
And as far as, you know, the recording process, it's totally different. You know, this is where, you know, totally different being the drummer versus being the front guy.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're the drummer, you drag your stuff in the studio. If the studio doesn't have, you know, studio kit, you drag your stuff in the studio. You do your one song or 12 songs in 1 or 2 days, and then you kind of tap out, and then you hear the record down the road, like, oh, wow, that's what it all sounded like.
Yep.
You know, when you're the front dude, you're there for every, you know, at least I try to be. You're there for every edit. You try to be there for every, you know, every time a musician comes into track, because you want to, you know, if you're not directly producing, you're co-producing. And so, you know, you're so much more, for me, I'm so much more intimate with the whole process. And what's cool, I think, that's going to make me a better session drummer and a better drummer, better musician live, is that I have appreciation for all those front men and women who I had the drums for, and like I did my part and cruised. Now I'm watching people do their part and leaving, you know, and I get to put the pieces together. I actually find both of them beneficial in their own ways. You know, one, you kind of like, it's carefree. You collect your studio fee and go home.
Yep.
The other one is more is different, but it's as fun or more fun because you get to actually put all the ingredients together to make the recipe that you're making. Sure.
So what do you think? Because this is a very hard question to answer for me too as a producer. It's like, what do you think the key is to being able to bring all of that stuff together in an efficient way? You know, is it what kind of mindset does it require for you?
You know what I think worked for me was, it's going to sound so, typical, but I think it was the homework, man. It was sort of like the preparation. You don't just walk in and like, what are we going to do today?
Perfect.
You actually thought it through, like, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is the plan, and this is, and again, like we saw with Happy Mistakes, it doesn't necessarily go in that direction.
No.
But at least you walked in with the plan. There was a game plan. There was a strategy for the day that was going to lead you to accomplish the strategy for the overall recording.
Agreed. Yeah. That preparation is so important.
Homework is, I think homework is underrated.
100%.
People don't do enough homework, and when they say the harder you work, the luckier you are, I truly believe that.
Yeah, preparation is everything.
How many times have you work your butt off on something, right? And then you go and you accomplish it. And someone comes up to you and says, "Man, you're so lucky." And inside, I'm like, I'm not angry by any means. And on the contrary, I'm actually relieved and appreciative because it looked like it was just like boom, 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 and it all happened.
Yes.
They don't realize the time.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to realize the prep that goes into it. But I noticed the difference between if I'm prep for a session or I'm not. It shows if you're just winging it. Like really, people wouldn't think if you're a mess. If you are not prepped for a session and you don't test everything beforehand, the patch base wired wrong, like it shows. People know, be like, who is this guy? Like the vibe is dead. So it's like that prep. That's one thing my mentor now teaches me. He's like, preparation is everything. He's like, you could be the best engineer, best producer, but if you go into that studio without doing your homework, you're in trouble. It's almost key.
And hey, I'm not going to say I haven't walked into a studio in my day.
Same.
Get my stuff together.
Yeah.
But that's how you learn.
That's how you learn. Those nightmare sessions are what teach us, So we're almost out of time. Amazing. There's so much here to wrap like up and like write a bio about, but like good luck with the release. I love the story behind it. It's beautiful. Amazing just sharing your story and seeing the evolution from being a drummer into a producer. It's very similar to mine, and it's organic, and that's the key. The efficiency, the preparation, and just the balance that you're keeping with the family and everything is so admirable for me to see as a producer. So amazing talking to you. Thank you. If you want to say anything before we leave to wrap up, guys, this is Eric Selby, and we're gonna post this on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. So you'll all be able to watch this. So Eric, thank you so much. If you want to wrap up at all, the floor is yours.
Sure. Matt, I just want to thank you and Ariel and Jen, the whole team, Jamie, all you guys have just been so great. And tomorrow, Anxious Zen is released. Feel free to jump on iTunes, Amazon, wherever, Spotify, wherever you listen or buy, preferably buy music, and check it out. I really appreciate the time, and good luck to you guys too in this during these crazy times.
You too. I'm looking forward to the release. I'll be listening tomorrow. I'll save it for you.
Cool.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.